Hi, this is Steve Harvey. You guys have asked a ton of questions on the internet about what is going on with 2100, when she will operate, and many other questions. We're going to take today and answer those questions that I have here, from the most popular to the least popular. First question on this comes from Brian Yostin. He asked, who is going to be the operating crew on 2100? That answer basically is going to be, we're going to do paid steam staff, contractors, and our volunteers is the answer to that question. A lot of the paid steam staff will help train our volunteers so that as time goes on, there'll be more volunteer versus contractors at that point. This question is a very popular question that we have seen many, many times. The question is, where will it run, and is there any home rails that we're going to be doing? The answer to that is we've had several short lines, 5 or 6 short lines have expressed interest in us running on their railroad. Unfortunately, it's like the chicken with the egg thing. Until we actually get the locomotive fully serviceable, it's kind of hard to approach the railroads to be able to give a timeline on when the locomotive will be ready for them to go or be able to take advantage of the locomotive being on their railroad. Our next question comes from Edward Banworth, who asked, any chance of painting it in the Chessie Steam special colors? Well, that's actually a very good question there, Edwin. While we'll entertain having the locomotive painted in different schemes, we are actually going to come out when the locomotive is ready to go. It will be painted in the full Reading freight scheme, and that is going to be the way it was when it was originally built. So that is what we're doing in the beginning. And we'll entertain if the thing is right and money's there and other things, that sort of repainting, because it is a costly process to get a locomotive painted. So one of the other more popular questions that we get asked, and a group of questions that we get asked, is, will it run on the Reading Blue Mountain Railroad? Will it go to Strasburg like the 611 did? Will it run on different railroads close to maybe like Steamtown and other places on the East Coast? Well, the answer to that question is if it's financially viable for us, we will go anywhere the locomotive can go safely and effectively to get out there for you to see. But unfortunately, with operating a big steam locomotive comes with big cost. And just firing up the locomotive is an 8-hour day for our crews, and also it can be anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 to just fire the locomotive up for that time frame before you even turn a wheel and turn a revenue ticket. So if it's financially viable for us, we'll definitely entertain the idea of going. But at this time, this question will have to be a little bit later when we get more put together. Our next question comes from Larry Schaefer, who asked, will the Stoker be fully operational? And yes, that Stoker will be fully operational. We have converted the locomotive back to burning coal. And when the firebox and hydro work is all done, we will start putting the grates back in so that this thing can burn coal as it was designed. This next question comes from Jim Wren, editor of Trains Magazine. We appreciate all your support and help out there, Jim. We appreciate all the publication that you've done with 2100. And here is your question. Your question was, what mechanical upgrades will be part of the 2100 rebuild? Well, Jim, I can tell you there's going to be a lot of upgrades that will be done to 2100. When she came in, the radio, one of the upgrades is a modern radio system. We're also looking at doing a modern sensor system on the locomotive. Our drivers' boxes are bearing type boxes, so we're going to make sure that we have temperature sensors in those. That way the cab crew and in the tool car can see what's going on with the performance of the locomotive. Also, too, a lot of people ask about PTC. I'm going to probably say, while in the beginning we may not have PTC installed on the locomotive, that will be a project looked at later on to get PTC installed on 2100 to make it compliant with the rest of the Class 1 system. There's many other little upgrades, from electrical to other things that you may not see on the locomotive that help us do our jobs inside the cab. And so there's just a lot of stuff that will take place for upgrades on 2100, and we'll be more than happy to show you those on future updates. Next question comes from Wayne Gilmore, who asks, is it likely that 2100 will ever get her booster back? Well, while during this rebuild process, we do know where 2100's booster is currently located at. It's not on the docket for right now to get the booster installed into 2100. 2100, as it sits without the booster, develops 68,000 pounds of tractive effort, which in excursion service and even pulling freight trains is a pretty hefty locomotive to be running around. We'll probably look towards sometime as a future project to get 2100's booster installed back under the trailing truck. And at that time, that does put 2100 back almost at 80,000 pounds of tractive starting effort. Now, mind you, just a little facts about the booster. The booster is only there for starting purposes. So when the train actually gets moving at a certain speed between about 10 to 15 mile an hour, and the engineer is actually cutting off using the cutoff, the booster actually gets cut out during that particular process. But to answer your question, the booster won't be on during the initial time frame. Okay, this question comes from Corey Hoskoven, who asked, what whistle will 2100 wear when she is finished? Well, that's an excellent question. We're going to be doing a Reading G3 6-chime Reading whistle. That will be the standard whistle on 2100 all the time. There is a Reading hooter whistle, but unfortunately that's very shrill, and when you got to be on the road with this locomotive and your engineer or even fireman, they can kind of get old after a while. It may happen, may not happen, but I can tell you the standard whistle is going to be a G3 class Reading 6-chime passenger whistle. Now, from time to time also too, we'll have some guest whistles on there. You might see an NYC whistle because Cleveland was a big NYC town. You might see a PRR whistle on there. Maybe possibly, who knows, a nickel plate whistle if it's available also too. So the answer to your question, it's going to be a Reading 6-chime whistle.
Because of the coronavirus and the state of Ohio's stay-at-home order, we weren't able to do any work on the locomotive for the last part of March, all of April, and early May. Once the order was lifted, we were able to continue where we left off on Reading 2100. One of the projects we continued on was the removal of reflective tape on the running board skirting. With heat guns and lots of elbow grease, the red tape was removed. Once all the tape is removed, the areas will be cleaned of the adhesive and be ready for priming and painting. The steel floor was removed from the cab. A new one will be made to replace it with areas cut out that will allow space for the grate shaker fingers and the Stoker auger housing. Speaking of the Stoker, the U-joint pin and joining parts of the auger were ground out. Angle brackets that once held the oil tank and the tender in place are being repurposed to make steps up the slope sheet inside the coal bunker of the tender. Thank you for your support. One of the very exciting things that has started in the middle of May is forging and machining of the 540 stay bolts has begun. As shown in the February update video, the bolts are cut to length from bar stock. Once they are cut to length, the stay bolts are cleaned on a grinder to remove any burrs. The new stay bolt is put into the lathe to drill the telltale holes. The drilling of these holes are a very important safety feature that will alert us if a stay bolt is broken inside the firebox with the water and steam coming out of it. Volunteers use great care when drilling to not break the bit, which helps cost and production times with our budget.
Would like to say thank you to everybody that contributed to our stay bolt fund. Here is the names and listings of all the people that contributed to that stay bolt fund. I'd like to say thank you for your continued support. Because of your continued support, we're getting closer and closer to having the hydro done on 2100. We'd also like to ask you to go visit our website at fireup2100.org. Take a look in the shopping cart for many hats, such as what I'm wearing right now, t-shirts, and many other sundry of items out there that help support American Steam Railroad. Again, I'm Steve Harvey, president of American Steam Railroad, and I say thank you for supporting our cause.